What's going on, hybrids? Coach Michael here, hybrid athlete and coach. Today I'm going to be taking you through some of the differences and things I experienced running my first full marathon, pivoting from half marathons in the past to running my first full marathon just a week and a half ago. I'm going to share with you everything I learned. Let's not fuck around. Let's dive in. So for those who know, for the last few months, I've been training for my first full marathon. I've done a few half marathons in the past, did one earlier in the year, and I pivoted my way towards my first full marathon just over a week and a half ago. I did the marathon in 3 hours and 35 minutes. I ended up finishing 5th overall with just a few people in front of me, and I'm really happy with the result. It was a lot of work, and there was a lot of things that I would have done differently, a lot of things that I learned leading up to it helped me and that were in my favor on the day that made running easier. And I'm going to share these things with you. These things are just experiences and things that I felt and experienced. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but you might get something useful out of it, and you might find some little nuances or details here that you can apply to your own training. Or if you're someone going into a half marathon or full marathon for the first time, there's a couple little things in here that maybe you haven't heard before that might be useful for you. I got these sunglasses for $5 on Temu. These saved my fucking life on the day. The time that we started running, which was about 6:50 a.m., the sun started to come up where we were in Sydney, and half the track, you basically had the sun blaring in your eyes. I had these sunglasses on me, so when I was running towards the sun, it actually made it totally fine. But there were a lot of runners around me who were trying to use their hats to cover the sun because they were fucking getting blinded, or some who literally had to run in sections with their arm up covering their face like that. Because the sun sat so low that it was just pumping us in the eyes. For at least half the race, you had the sun blasting you in the eye. So these $5 Temu sunglasses helped me heaps. They also helped with the rain because it was raining a lot during the race. And they just stopped water getting in my eyes and they blocked the sun, which was super useful, which meant I was able to run faster. And honestly, when you're running that kind of distance and running at that pace, you just want less things to worry about. So these were handy, might be worth investing in a pair, $5 on Temu. Tip number 3, nutrition really fucking matters for a full marathon. This is something I learned the hard way on the day, but it's something that I'll never forget again. For a half marathon, I feel like you can half-ass your nutrition a little bit. I know some people who do a half marathon without any gels, some people that do a half marathon with just sipping water, using the nutrition stations they have available, and they usually do them fine. Some people do them in great times, no problem at all. But for a full marathon, because the distance is so much longer, you need to think about your nutrition and your hydration. I dare say anything above 30 kilometers, nutrition is going to make or break that portion of the race. For me, leading up to the 30-kilometer mark, everything was Gucci. I was feeling great. My legs weren't too fatigued and everything was fine. From the 30-kilometer mark onwards, it got really hard. And I really needed to make sure that my hydration and gel timing was on point. 30-kilometer mark, you know, your legs are fatigued. You've been running pretty fast for as long as you can and you're starting to slow down. The nutrition stuff is something that becomes really into play because it's going to help you prevent cramps and everything, which really happens in those later stages of the race. And then obviously hydration is a big one because it also helps with the cramps and your energy and all that as well. So if you're someone who doesn't give a fuck about their nutrition or hydration when it comes to running, if you're doing short distances and it's been working for you, continue. But if you're going into a full marathon, it's something you're going to want to think about. And it's something you should be practicing in your training and something you should keep the same that you've been doing in your training come race day. So it's all the same, not unfamiliar, and you're able to just continue doing whatever you're used to, as it's going to help you really push and maintain that speed and not just die out towards the end, which I saw happen to countless people because they were just all over the place in terms of their nutrition or hydration strategy. I had a gel every 6 kilometers and I had a sip of water or Gatorade every 3 to 2 kilometers or whenever I felt like I need it. And when I had a sip, I had the tiniest sip because I'm someone that's prone to getting stitches, which I did on the race. And they fucking destroy me every time. So I just had the tiniest little sips. When it comes to the gels, I kind of hold the gel in my hand over the course of a kilometer and I just kind of have little nibbles on that as I'm running that 6th or 7th K. That worked for me, although I did feel fucked and was still cramping towards the end. So there's definitely some room for improvement in that regard. So long story short, You can half-ass a half marathon in terms of your training, your diet, nutrition and stuff on race day. But for a full marathon, I would highly recommend you pay attention to it and get used to doing whatever you want to do when that race comes around. Just so you don't die in the ass. Pacing strategy. Again, compared to a half marathon, what I found is for a half marathon, I can pretty much maintain the pace the entire time, no problem at all. And that's exactly what I did on race day. But for me, or for a lot of you, from that 28, 30 kilometer mark onwards, you're going to find your pace starts to drop off a little bit. Okay, and this is someone going into the race for the first time. If you're a pro, you don't have this issue. A lot of professional runners are able to maintain whatever pace it is they're doing the entire race, no problem at all, and they're absolute animals. But for me, I couldn't do that, and I didn't do that. I had a range that I wanted to stay within. My range was roughly anywhere from like 450, 445, up to 5 minutes, 30 seconds. I had to just stay in that range for the entire race. The beginning of the race, I was able to run at 455, 5-minute pace, no problem at all. I did that pretty much up until the 33 kilometer mark, but those last 9, 10 kilometers were really hard, and my pace dropped off as slow as 5:30, 5:45 in some instances. Again, having a pacing strategy helps a lot. So what I noticed on the race is a lot of guys that were in front of me in the beginning were running faster, but towards the end, they were dying off real fast. And this is probably a combination both of their pacing strategy as well as their nutrition strategies. But the pacing strategy is probably one of the biggest factors. Maybe they went too hard too early, gassed themselves out, and just didn't have the legs to maintain that pace towards the end. For me, I knew what I was capable of because of my training. I knew roughly where I had to be. I knew 100% I could have run faster than 4:45, which I have done numerous times. I've done a half marathon at roughly 4:36 pace. So I knew I have more in the tank, and I felt really good on the day. I knew I could have pushed it more, but I chose not to. I chose to just stick to my plan. Stay around that 4:55 mark as long as I could, and inevitably towards the end I dropped off a little bit, but I knew how much how much would drop off. I expected it all. Nothing came to me as a surprise, and it still allowed me to finish actually way ahead of the time that I wanted. So highly recommend you have a pacing strategy. You don't need to do the exact same one as me, but you're generally going to find that towards the end of the race, your pace is going to drop off a little bit. So you may want to go a little bit faster in the beginning and then give yourself some wiggle space or a range to stay within as your pace drops off towards the end. If you want to run a full marathon, your running volume definitely needs to be higher in training compared to what it would be training for a half marathon. For a half marathon, I think I was hitting around 50, 60 Ks a week. You do not need to run that much, by the way. There's plenty of people that do 20 to 30 Ks a week, no problem at all, and get great times for half marathons. But for me, being bigger, I generally find I do have to do a little bit more volume to keep up that level of fitness and maintain that pace. Leading into my marathon, I ended up doing in my peak week, I think 85 kilometers roughly. And I found that helped me in the sense, one, my legs just had a lot of endurance on the day, which was great. So I was able to keep that kind of faster pace towards the end. And the amount of running I had done leading into the race meant that I was always comfortable running on tired legs. I knew that even if my legs were fatigued, I could probably still push it. So running volume makes a big difference, obviously, in improving your aerobic fitness, which is the major factor here in terms of fitness and how you're going to go on the day, but also just in terms of getting used to running on tired legs. Getting used to handling large amounts of volume means your legs won't get as cooked on the race day, particularly towards those later stages of the race when you've been really tired from running so fast. Nonetheless, running volume for a marathon, a lot more than your running volume usually for a half marathon. There's no right or wrong answer of exactly how much you need to be doing, but just know that, whatever you're doing for the half marathon, you probably want to do at least another third on top of whatever you've been doing for your half marathon training. I don't know what tip we're up to, but I'm going to say this. 50% of the race and your performance on the day is going to come down to your psychology or your headspace on the day. If you're really in your own head, if you're like, fuck, my ankle's sore, fuck, my knee's sore, oh, I'm cramping up, I need water, this is so hard. If you start with that negative kind of chain of thought towards the end of the race, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. So my word of advice is do your best to, one, get used to running those distances so you can kind of have those internal battles in training. So then on race day, you're like, okay, I've been here before, it's all good, everything's fine. And mind is like, just stop, walk for a bit, have a drink of water, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if you change the plan, if you start giving in to your mind, particularly in those later stages of the race, you're going to throw out the end of your race. You're going to just throw away the end of your race. And if you had a time you want to hit, you're probably not going to be able to get it because your mind has taken over at that point and you're giving in to everything it's telling you to do. So do your best in training to get used to that. And put yourself in those positions where you're running on those blisters, where you're running on those sore knees and whatever. So when the race day comes, or nothing is unexpected and you know you've been there before and you've got the confidence to be able to continue to push. But if it's your first race, this goes for both half marathon and full marathon. Wear the most comfortable shoes you have. Who gives a fuck if they're not your fastest shoes or not? Wear the most comfortable shoes you have. These are the shoes I ran in. These are Asics Kayanos, but these are my other runners that I have. These are my race shoes that I would normally wear. I've worn them in the past. These ones have a carbon plate in them. They're a lot springier. They definitely make me a little bit faster, but they're not as comfortable as these. These shoes are Asics Nova Blast. They have a little bit of a rock, as you can see at the front it's called, so they kind of like help you roll forward. I have a foot that kind of collapses when I run. These provide me a lot of support, and as you can see, a lot wider at the front compared to my other shoes. So these are a lot more comfortable for me, way more comfortable. These shoes are a little bit narrower, not as comfortable, hurt my feet a lot more, but I go a lot faster in them. I ran my marathon in these, and I'll tell you why. Leading into the race, my feet were fucked. I had blisters everywhere and I was tossing and turning, trying to figure out what shoes I should wear on the day. I wore both of these a couple times in training, and every time I wore them, I could hardly run for longer than 6-7 kilometers without my toes bleeding, the blisters getting worse. My feet still hurt, but way less. And I knew that if I wanted to be comfortable on the day, I should just wear the shoes that I'm most comfortable in, even though I may be slightly slower. Wearing these was the best decision I made. Running in these made my feet feel a lot better. My feet and toes did still hurt because I just had so many blisters. I had 2 toenails come off basically the week of the race, which I had to band-aid the shit out of and all that kind of stuff. But these helped an insane amount because my feet felt comfortable and it's just one less thing to worry about. Had I worn these, maybe I would have gone a little bit faster, but I guarantee my time would have been slower overall because I would have had to have stopped, maybe put a new band-aid on my toes, taken my shoe off, readjusted it a few times, whatever, just because these shoes are a little bit narrower and not as comfortable for me to run in, although they do make me feel faster. So, long story short, if it's your first race, wear whatever shoes are the most comfortable for you. Last but not least, I guess I'll give you guys an update on what's happening with my training right now. So, my next race is in September, and I'm not doing a full marathon or an ultra or anything like that anytime soon, as much as I would like to do that again. I need to take some time, one, in just getting faster over shorter distances, and I actually want to go back to doing some heavy lifting again. So as of right now, I've been doing some heavy squats, benching, and deadlifting again in my program. I want to get those strong again, and I want to just get faster over shorter distances. So my next race, I'll be doing a 10K race where I want to try and get under 45, or between 40 to 45 minutes. I'm probably close to it now, but I want to make sure I definitely nail that on the day. And then about 4 weeks after that, I've got another half marathon. One that I did last year. I want to blow my time out of the water and I want to destroy the time I got earlier in the year, which was an hour 41. I want to try and get around hour 35 mark for that, maybe hour and a half. That would be awesome. So as of right now, my training has me doing 3 lifting days per week, or 3 weight training days, or 3 strength sessions with squat, benching, and deadlifting sprinkled in all of those, plus a whole bunch of accessories. I also do want to gain some of the muscle back that I lost leading into the race, which is always part of the journey. And then my running, I'm doing 3 to 4 runs a week right now. Running volume is probably not going to exceed 40 Ks a week as of right now. Really spending a lot of time just focusing on getting faster, which I'm going to enjoy because I haven't been able to do that in quite some time, if ever. As I've always been so focused on just building up my aerobic fitness. But I've done a great job of accumulating that volume over the last year and a half that I think my aerobic fitness is at quite a good point. Now I want to just devote some time to getting faster and see how that works out. As always, if you're a hybrid or aspiring hybrid athlete who wants to run and lift, maybe you have a race coming up, maybe you want to figure out how to get stronger while running. I have online coaching spots available to anyone, anywhere in the world, tailored online program catering to each individual athlete where I will do all the thinking for you. All you have to do is visit my website, contact me, shoot me a message on Insta. and I'll do the rest. All right, guys, that's a wrap on another video. I hope you guys got something out of it. Those were a few tips and things that I learned and experienced going into my first marathon, things that I will carry with me for the rest of my training career. Those are tips that are a little bit unconventional, things that you might find useful, things that you might not find so useful. If you agree with them, give me a like, comment, subscribe, whatever. If you disagree with them and you find your training or you've experienced different things, comment those below as well. I'd love to have a discussion about it, find out more about what's worked for you guys. Those things worked for me. I hope you got something out of it. That's enough jibber jabber. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Oh yeah, don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.